Welcome back to SwitchStars, my name's Luke, and I'm back today with another quick review for you, this time for a game called Rule No.1, an arcade-style arena shooter with roguelike elements, which might be of interest to all you high-score chasers out there. So without further ado, let's get right on into it. And as always, drop a like if this review helps you out, and consider subscribing to the channel for more reviews and more Switch-related goodness. So no storyline with this one, and instead what we get are 5 separate game modes, 4 of which are focused around the arena shooter action, and a 5th which involves shooting of a different kind, that being some hoops with a basketball themed minigame. But getting into the first game mode, we have competitive. Now, the basic premise of all the shooter modes doesn't really change much between them, with a few minor tweaks to the setup, but as I said in the intro, the game is essentially an arcade-style arena shooter in which the objective is to defeat waves of enemies, with each kill earning you points towards your high score, as well as accumulating green tokens to unlock some saucy images in the game's gallery. Though of course, these are likely to be pretty tame considering Nintendo's new stance on frontal nudity. Getting back to the game though, upon starting a new run you're dropped into a relatively small arena, and the first wave offers up 6 boxes for you to destroy, 3 of which are green and reward you a few points, and the other 3 which are red and contain a heart piece and a weapon. Each subsequent wave then grants an additional green and red box, and this is essentially where the roguelike elements come in, as the weapon drops are always random and range from pistols and shotguns to assault rifles and machine guns, and in general they provide a little bit of variety and a few different options for you to work with. But truth be told, I found the pistols to be a little bit underpowered, most of the shotguns had too slow of a rate of fire, and you actually have unlimited ammo, so once you snag yourself a rifle or machine gun, you'll likely be set with them for the rest of the run and not actually switch to any other weapons. Now when it comes to the enemies, the game actually caught me slightly off guard to start with, as it threw these bouncing cube things at me, and in the first wave I didn't actually realise that they were the enemies. But as you fight your way from one wave to the next, new enemy types are introduced, and while admittedly from what I've seen they do all fail to impress in terms of the visuals, the variety they bring is actually pretty reasonable. Each of them has a different movement pattern and way of attacking you, be that charging right towards you or circling around you and shooting at you, and learning how and when to use your grenades and dodge ability are definitely key to success, as is prioritising certain enemies. What I will say though is that I actually found the arena to be a little bit too small and it gets crowded real quickly, which can become an issue especially in the latter waves when these big spike barriers start to spawn, further reducing its size. And the enemies themselves come from all angles, which makes it really hard to keep track of things or form any kind of strategy, as you're constantly just trying to watch your back. From what I've seen, there's also only one single flat arena to play in, which could become quite old quite quickly, and I think the addition of more arena types, especially some with elevation, would go a long way in adding to the game's replayability. Now when it comes to the other game modes, like I said, apart from the basketball game, which is pretty enjoyable in itself and has you shooting as many hoops as you can to earn points, the other shooter modes are all variants on the competitive mode. Arcade mode includes a bunch of additional weapons, including dual wielding pistols and an automatic shotgun, and it's basically an easier version of competitive mode. Bouncy Boys Only mode throws wave after wave of bouncing cubes at you, removing all other enemy variants, while God Stilettos removes all weapon pickups and instead arms you with a throwing dagger which tears through anything in a couple of hits. So overall, the different game modes offer some additional variety and alternative leaderboards to compete in. Now, to touch on the audio and visuals, like I said, visually there's nothing particularly outstanding, and the game features a strange mixture of pixel art and low poly environments and enemies, which work fine and help keep the frame rate stable, but are nothing really to write home about. When it comes to the audio, we get some relatively generic sound effects for the weapons, enemies and pickups, and our character randomly blurts out well-known quotes from movies, which is cute to start with, but does get a little repetitive. But the game's soundtrack is pretty decent and can be cycled through at the press of a button, and all in all I'd say that it's an adequate job on the audio and visual front. All in all though, Rule No. 1 is a pretty decent arcade shooter in my opinion, and I'd say that it's well suited as a time filler game as it keeps things simple but challenging, the controls are pretty solid, the frame rate is smooth, and while it could do with a few more mechanics and arenas to play in, the online leaderboards certainly give you a reason to keep on playing. When all's said and done though, and when it comes to my own personal rating, I'm going to be giving Rule No. 1 3 out of 5 stars, and I'd say that if you're a fan of arcade style shooters or are just looking for a new high score chaser to sink a few hours into, Rule No. 1 may be worth picking up as it's relatively cheap and an enjoyable enough play. And with that said, that about does it for this review of Rule No. 1, so let me know what you thought about the game, whether you're going to be picking it up, and what your favourite arcade games or high score chasers are down in the comments section below. As always though, drop a like if this review helped you out, consider subscribing to the channel for more Switch reviews as well as frequent dollar deals videos, top lists and other Switch related content. Thanks once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.